Good morning team, how are you? As you can see here, I'm sitting on the beach in Samoa, beautiful Savai Lagoon Resort. You probably have seen on social media that we're over here for a training camp at the moment, preparing a number of athletes for Ironman World Championships, which is in a few weeks' time. And we were fortunate enough to, as part of the camp, to have a sort of a triathlon set up for ourselves, where we could sort of get used to training and racing, well, racing in the heat, and just work on some practices to improve the way the athletes cope in the hot, humid climate. So the purpose of this camp really is to just train the athletes in an environment that's going to be similar to what they'll be racing in Hawaii, and just give them the tools to understand how their bodies react to the heat, and also help give them some adaptation so that when they do get to Kona, that they're not that they're well prepared for the conditions. So we've had a couple of really good training days, and we've had a race which has been fantastic. So it sort of came to mind that I probably should give some tips as to how I cope with, or how I've found I've coped with the heat and humidity in the past. I've always found I've coped pretty well in hot climates for training and racing. I seem to enjoy it, or seem to do better in that than I do in the cold, and could be a combination of things, but I just think over the years I've sort of developed some tools to help me get through and sort of understand how my body's adapting. So I want to share some of those with you today. The most important thing really is to optimising your hydration. So obviously the hotter it is, the more your body's going to sweat, the more you need to keep on top of that. So through the day, when you're not training, I'm always making sure that drinking water, or a good balance of electrolytes and water. Not drinking more than you need to, but certainly drinking to thirst, and just being aware that in these conditions you do get thirstier, so you should up your intake a little bit more. But then during the workouts and the race, I'm certainly drinking a lot more than I would have in the past. So for example, in the triathlon, it was a 90k bike ride, and I think I probably had maybe two and a half, maybe even 3 litres of fluid, combination of water, electrolytes and carbohydrate drink, which is a lot more than I would normally have in a more temperate environment, and it worked really well. It was fantastic. So good balance of electrolytes. The other thing is as well is your body works a lot harder in these conditions as well, so you do need to increase your calorie intake, or make sure that you are taking in enough calories. It's really hard to take more calories in the heat, so it's something you need to adapt to and train for a little bit. So really good opportunity here to start working on those sorts of things, but you can do that as well when you're training on the indoor trainer in the shed in the depth of winter. You can still work on taking in more calories in a controlled hot environment. And the other important thing, as I said before, is just to drink to thirst. You don't need to overhydrate, that's extremely risky, but certainly don't find yourself dehydrated. So if you're thirsty, you should be drinking. Acclimation is really important as well, or acclimatization, I guess it's 2 words, same meaning, but you know, there's a lot of things you can do in training to prepare yourself for these conditions. So in the weeks leading up to coming away to this camp, I was doing a lot more indoor trainer sessions with the fan turned off. I use a core body monitor, which is a sensor that sits against your skin, and it gives you the core temperature, and it's really good for monitoring that. As your core temperature increases, you're able to sort of understand the sensation and understand how to manage with that. So switching the fan off, wearing another layer of clothing on the trainer, outside cycling, leg warmers, arm warmers, vest, always making sure that you're warmer and then colder. That's a great way to adapt. And running with long sleeves, long legs, just gloves, hat, just things that you can do to make sure that your body is working in a hotter state. And the acclimation process can be pretty quick, and it's also pretty effective, so it's well worth doing. Don't want to turn up to a place like this and not have prepared in advance. It can be quite risky. I always keep an eye on my heart rate. One thing you see is that your heart rate increases when you're working in a hotter environment, and relative to your intensity, or your pace, or your power that you're familiar with, the heart rate might be quite a lot higher than what you've seen before. As I said, appropriate clothing is really important. So in the adaptation phase, appropriate clothing is really important, but when you are in these hot climates, wearing clothing which is light cooling, so perhaps a material that can hold on to water and just keep that cool water next to your skin. I don't wear baggy, flappy clothing. I find that increases the risk of chafing and things like that, so I've always got something that's quite tight fitting. And yeah, I'm a bit of a fan of you know, not having skin covered. Some people like sleeves which they can use as cooling devices. I don't really like that. I prefer to have my skin out, but make sure you have you got a lot of sunblock on. So the clothing is really important. What works for you might not work for others, but yeah, it's something you have to practice and sort of figure out. But wearing a hat, something to keep the sun off your head. Sunglasses as well to protect your eyes. Pacing in the heat and the humidity is really important. So yeah, it's something that we find is the pace or the power that you're putting out relative to your heart rate or your perceived effort is generally a lot lower. So you think you're putting out a certain value of power that you would in your normal climate. Over here it could be 5, 10, 15 watts less. Pace wise it could be 10, 15, 20 seconds per K slower. It's a really important thing to be aware of and not try and fight that. You just have to let your body do what it knows it needs to do, and don't try and up your intensity because you think that it should be higher than it should be. It's just your body giving you the message of this is fast enough, your heart rate's here, no need to go any higher than that, just keep it in control. And we generally find that in these climates you do go a lot slower and you do put out a lot less power. The other thing is just keep an eye on your heart rate as well. So if you do see your heart rate starting to increase, then that's a sign that your cooling strategies aren't quite working, and maybe your hydration levels need working on as well. So really important to keep those things in check. The other thing I always think about is in a race or a workout in this condition is starting out easier and looking to finish stronger, rather than the opposite, starting out strong and dropping off the pace. It's always better if you can start slower and lift your effort through it if you feel you can, or just hold that effort the whole way. The other important thing to do, it's easier in a race because we do have aid stations, but sometimes you can have someone who comes along with you on a bike when you're running and can carry some cold water and some ice sponges and that sort of thing. So in a race, any opportunity you get to put cold water over your skin, over your head, down your back of your neck, on your legs, it's really important to do. If you find that if you cool your body down, the perceived effort decreases as well. So quite often as you go through an aid station, you feel $1 million because you cooled your body down, you're feeling quite good again, and you sort of feel this wave of I'm feeling really great, and often that just drops off a little bit as you begin to heat up again. But hopefully you get into the next aid station, you can just employ that cooling strategy again. Some people like to wear sort of cooling devices, headbands, neckties, all those sorts of things which can hold cold water, and that's a really good thing to help keep your body cool as well. And yeah, really important, just listen to your body. I mean, you don't want to fight the signs of when you're starting to be affected by the heat. If you're feeling it, you need to slow down, you need to chill out a little bit, you need to get some cooling in, and just take your time getting back into the workout again. Don't fight it, because generally if you fight it, then things don't end too well. It's really important after a hard session in the heat or a race that you recover really well. You just find that your body just deals with the heat so much. It's so much harder. What seems like an easy workout, you're just pretty drained for the rest of the day. So make sure when you finish these sessions that you just take your time to recover, get some hydration and recovery nutrition in, put your feet up, use your compression boots, all those sorts of things, just to help the body get back to a normal state, and don't rush out into the next workout if you're not ready to. And the last thing that a lot of people ask me about is whether or not they should use air conditioning in the accommodation, particularly on race week. I'm a big fan of using air conditioning. Generally when you're in your accommodation, it's the time when you're recovering. You don't want to make the recovery any more stressful than it needs to be. Keep the air conditioning on, sleep really well. Sleep's where your body does most of the recovery, so if you have the air conditioning turned off and you're trying to sleep, it's it's horrible. It's really hard to get those hours in. The adaptation comes in the training. Don't try and stretch that adaptation out to the stages when you should be recovering. So keep the air conditioning turned on, make the most of it, and when you're outside, that's the time to start getting used to the conditions. Anyway, that's about it for now. If you've got any questions, please send me a message. You know, I'm happy to help out, give people some advice on what they should be doing, that sort of thing. But just can't get enough of this. Look at this location. It's absolutely incredible. Isn't it beautiful? If you're thinking of travelling anywhere, come to Samoa for a training block, or better still, come to our training camp this time next year, and we'll have it on again. Anyway, take care everybody. See ya.